It is 5 times more likely for an LGBTQ plus teenager to have attempted suicide in their lifetime than their heterosexual counterparts. Yes, 5 times more likely. Why is this? Well, it's because our society has failed to create a safe space for LGBTQ plus children and teenagers to grow up in. From birth, if you're a boy, you always get, he's gonna be such a ladies' man. If you're a girl, you gotta watch out for all the boys who'll come after her. Heteronormativity is so ingrained in our society that anything that strays from this seems unnatural. Now, I'm not saying everyone is inherently homophobic, because we've definitely progressed immensely in the last few decades. But being LGBTQ+ is still seen as out of the ordinary. I want you to think about this. If we had truly accepted the LGBTQ+ community into our society, why is it still expected that they're supposed to come out to everyone around them? Straight people aren't forced to have that all too awkward conversation with their parents, their friends, and pretty much any new person who comes into their lives. So why is it that if you're gay, you're supposed to go around telling everyone like it's some disease you might spread? So this is why I think education plays a pivotal role. Because we spend the most important formative years of our lives at school. So if this isn't a safe environment that fosters open-mindedness and inclusivity, there's a real problem there. Being a teenager is already hard enough. Having to deal with the stress of school, maintaining a social life, planning for your future, having to deal with the stress of an identity crisis due to your sexuality or gender identity is something that LGBTQ+ youth should not have to struggle through. I spent 3 years in health classes, and never once did we talk about anything LGBTQ+ related. We briefly talked about suicide and mental health, but never about the fact that they are so much more prevalent in LGBTQ+ youth. I learned about World War II for almost 2 years, and it was never even mentioned how thousands of gay men were arrested, persecuted, and put in concentration camps just because they were gay, as well as being used for medical experiments to try and find a cure for homosexuality. From talking with my peers and friends, I figured out just how little they actually knew about the LGBTQ+ community. Some didn't even know what each of the letters stood for. This is when I really started to wonder why we were expected to memorize every single part of a plant, but yet so many people don't even know that there's more than just gay and straight. I wonder how many of you even realized that today was the first day of Pride Month. There is so much information that is just never shared in schools because it is deemed unnecessary or simply taboo. But when we don't talk about these issues and when it isn't normalized, students struggling with their sexuality or gender identity feel alienated and wrong. When I was about 13 years old and started to properly question my own sexuality for the first time, I thought I had to choose between gay and straight. I didn't know there were any other options, and at that time, I didn't feel like I fit into either. This didn't end well for me because I thought there was something innately wrong with me, that I wasn't supposed to feel like this. Because I had never learned anything about the LGBTQ+ community, I was left to figure out everything on my own, while my peers were running around the hallways, calling each other gay as the highest form of insult. My lack of information spiraled into self-hatred and a full-on identity crisis at around 15 to 16 years of age. I started pushing away my friends and my family because I didn't think I deserved to be happy. I was dealing with some very dark thoughts, but I never reached out to anyone because I thought I was supposed to deal with all of this on my own. I would lie in bed for hours every night just trying to figure out what was going on inside of my head, and then come to school the next day exhausted and unable to work. And then COVID hit, and we went into lockdown, and the complete lack of outside contact destroyed all of the progress I'd slowly started to make. Ultimately, though, the amount of self-reflecting I was forced to do over this time helped me out of this dark space I had crawled into. I finally started to realize that I was okay, and I wasn't dirty for not being straight. But this only happened because I informed myself. I found people online and eventually in real life who were like me, and I saw that I wasn't alone. Now imagine if I had gotten this information 4 years ago. I could have avoided years of hating myself for who I was, and instead could have embraced this beautiful part of who I am. If someone had just explained to me that it was okay and that it was normal to be LGBTQ+, I could have lived much happier teenage years. Including just a lesson or two about the historic discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community in social studies, or discussing the issues of homophobia and bullying in health class, or even just including LGBTQ+ literature in English class, wouldn't take anything away from your normal education. But it would create an environment where students can see that it's okay to talk about this or to be a part of this community. Because if kids grow up thinking that you're not supposed to talk about this and you're not supposed to feel this way, they will go into adulthood with prejudice and bias, and that doesn't help anyone. And this is why it is so important to include LGBTQ+ education in our school systems. Because I am not the only one. And I was lucky, because I'm still standing here today. But there are too many lives who were lost far too young because they didn't know it was okay to be themselves. And the fact that this could have been prevented with just a little bit of support should be incentive enough for any of you. Because it isn't enough anymore to just say that we recognize and respect the diversity of our learners. You need to actually start doing something about it. Thank you.